Welcome to The Application, a podcast focused on actionable takeaways to help you level up your marketing and enrollment management game. I'm your host, Dr. Allison Tercio, Assistant Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing at Siena College. Join me every Tuesday for discussions with some of the best minds in higher ed marketing and enrollment management. The Application is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal faves linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Hi, everyone. Today we have a special guest who will be sharing insights on a very crucial aspect of the student journey, the moment a student inquires with a college. Yep, we're going to talk about how can we leverage that moment when a student has raised their hand, they have taken an action, and now what is ours to do? So joining us today is Angie Mohr, Senior Vice President for Student Engagement at Archer Education. Welcome to the show, Angie.
Hi, Allison. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics, actually. I love to talk about the big moments when a student has taken an action, whether they have applied, they have inquired, they have signed up to visit, and how can we as higher ed marketers really take advantage of that moment and meet the student where they are. But to kick things off, let's dive into the importance of that pivotal moment. When a student makes an inquiry with the college, they have taken an action, they have said, I am interested in learning more. Why is that moment so crucial for the overall student recruitment process?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question. And I think that's what I talk about all day and every day really is that, I can't emphasize enough the importance of that moment. Like we think that there might be other like bigger moments, but when someone is interested enough to like raise their hand or say, hey, I'm interested in this, you called it a big moment, which I think is a great way to frame it. And we also say, it's a really high intent moment. Like someone is in the mindset and in that frame of mind where they want to take some sort of next step forward. So that's what, we call that high intent. And so you're setting the stage really for, if you think about as an institution, right, as a college, someone's reaching out and saying, I want to know more about you or this program or, details about it. You're setting the stage for their entire experience with you. So it is a really high intent and it's a really critical moment where you can make that, first impression essentially versus, waiting until someone starts their application or gets to that point in the process before we really kind of turn it on. So I think just thinking about and framing, when someone submits a lead, we have to think about that as a big opportunity to make a great first impression. And so one of the things that, my team does or that we're talking to our partners about all day and every day within that too is, what that typically looks like is, someone submits that lead form and they're basically just served this like static thank you page that says, hey, thank you. Thanks for submitting your information. Like, hold on tight. We'll be with you shortly kind of thing. And so that's why we call it like the high intent moment. How do you kind of reframe that to go from, let's not leave someone hanging. Let's actually use that moment to help keep kind of that momentum going.
Well, and if you think about their lives outside of the college search process, which can be hard for all of us, we think that this is everything they're thinking about and working on, right? Because that's how our lives are. But they're probably experiencing something very different when they request information or they engage with other types of consumer products or consumer services, right? That's creating some kind of expectation for how that moment should be happening.
Right. Yeah. And to your point, there's a finite amount of time that we have in those moments to really keep their attention and grab their attention because, like you said, there are things in life kind of happening all around prospective students, all day and every day. So yeah, how do we take that moment and instead of saying, okay, we'll get back to you later, let's talk now, let's get started. Let's continue this conversation right now while I have your attention. And so that's, again, that's what we focus on, is creating that conversation, that engagement with a prospective student kind of right then and there to keep that attention, keep them moving forward, get them to take that next step.
Yeah, because that's going to raise application rate. That's going to raise enrollment rate and yield. It's all going to put through if we take that sort of first moment, that first look moment, and take advantage of the student. So much of what we do in higher ed marketing is we're going to them. So and there's so much focus on what are we saying, what are we going to them. Here's a chance they're coming to us. They're knocking on my door. This doesn't always happen, especially for non-name brand colleges, right?
Exactly. I think that's another, we're in a time of the haves and the have-nots, and it really is critical if you are focused on growth and needing, to grow your enrollments. This is it's just such a critical moment. And one of the things that I was thinking about when you were kind of, saying that was, if you want to compare this to, okay, the typical process where you're saying, okay, I'm filling out a lead form and then I'm getting this thank you page and then I'm waiting to get an email follow-up or maybe a phone call from the enrollment team. If you think about your contact rates when you have that outreach, and again, like you've mentioned, they're reaching out to us. What can we do to kind of leverage that engagement right in this moment? But if we wait, contact rates usually look something like 40 to 50%. Email open rates, if you compare it to an email open rate after someone's inquired, or your ability to get them to answer the phone, which by the way continues to go down and down and down with the phone aversion and all the technology now that says hey, this is probably spam calling, whatever. But we compare that to, okay, you've got that drop off and you can get in contact with half of those students now, essentially, let's just round up. Well, when you can actually keep them engaged right after they inquire, what we see is that oftentimes around 80 to 90% of them stay with you. So to your point about being able to increase applications and increase enrollments kind of downstream or down funnel there, if you think about you're keeping, another 40% of those users engaged, just think about what that could mean for more conversions later on if you're not seeing that same kind of drop off. So when we, the tool of technology that we use, we call it the engagement rate. And that is, again, once someone fills out that form, do they stay with you? Do they stay engaged on these, we have these digital experiences. And that we compare that to a contact rate, because we're basically saying these are the amount of users that you're keeping engaged with your brand and getting to kind of take that next step forward. So I think that's a great way to look at it, to say if you can create more engagement in that first kind of big moment of high intent, it absolutely will have an effect with those users and their ability to, continue to move forward and fill out an application, especially, if you're providing a really positive and unique experience that stands out from, again, all those other just thank you pages that are out there in the market. We know that prospective students today are getting information from multiple universities about multiple programs. So we really do have to find ways to stand out and provide that, really unique experience.
What I really like about focusing in on this moment is I think a lot of times our attention is grabbed by the yield aspect of enrollment marketing. So we get really focused in on the admitted students and increasing yield. But the truth is that there's only so much you can do at that point, because your relationship and your engagement has been set. This is a process that many of the students are in for 2 years, and we then want to leverage the last 2 months to make this huge sweeping change, right? So I like this idea of sort of focusing more on the front end. And then guess what? You're not going to be worrying as much about yield at the end of the funnel in those last 2 months when it's so hard to make the movement. So are there colleges that are leveraging this moment really well? Who are our exemplars? And what are they doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There are definitely some institutions that stand out, certainly in my mind. And we are working with, colleges and universities across the US, whether it's certificate programs, right? Or bachelor's degrees or master's degrees. It doesn't really matter the type of program. I think it's just, making sure that you're providing that experience. But, we've worked with institutions like, bigger kind of name brands like University of Texas, Columbia University, ASU, Babson. No, and again, some of these are certificate programs, some of them are master's degrees, to provide this kind of elevated, student experience right out of the gate. And when we've been able to come in and help provide that, we absolutely see those application rates go up and the yield rates go up, and it makes the jobs of the enrollment team just a little bit easier, right? They're not having to focus so much of their time and attention on the enrollment piece. But we've also worked with really kind of small regional institutions that don't have a name, in their market. So for example, we worked with Peru State College, which is in the middle of Nebraska and competes essentially with the University of Nebraska. Athens State University, we're working with Augusta University today. And so I guess all that's to say, like, if we're working with these institutions and we're using this technology, like, I like to think that, if you would go out today and submit a lead on these institutions' websites, that you would see that they are providing a higher level of kind of service and the experience to those students. But honestly, I think just across the board, what I still see in higher ed today is kind of this kind of one size fits all approach where institutions are still kind of just relying on a kind of set it and forget it automation, if you will, of just like follow up. We're going to send emails, we're going to send some text messages, we're going to reach out. I haven't seen a lot, honestly, of this concept of, right when a user fills out that inquiry form, like what happens next being something that's very unique and different and stands out. It really still tends to be that kind of generic approach of we'll say thanks and then we'll follow up later.
Hey, it's Allison from the Application Podcast. Exciting news. I'll be at the Engage Summit in Raleigh on June 25th and 26th, and I'd love to meet you there. Hosted by Element 451, the Engage Summit is where AI meets higher ed. Sessions will focus on cutting-edge AI applications that are reshaping student outreach, enhancing staff productivity, and offering deep insights into ROI. This is not your typical conference. Trust me, I went last year and it was amazing. Think of it as a strategic summit where you'll learn from the best about leveraging AI and digital strategies in higher ed marketing. Imagine 2 days filled with hands-on sessions, real success stories, and the chance to network with top minds in the field. You're going to leave with practical, transformative takeaways as you learn how AI fosters a more personalized, efficient approach from recruitment all the way through student success. Oh, and the best part, the Engage Summit is incredibly affordable. Tickets are just $150 a person, but wait, it gets better. Use the discount code ENROLLIFY50 at checkout and you can register for just $99. This early bird pricing lasts until March 31st. So join me and many of my fellow Enrollify Network creators at the Engage Summit this coming June. Learn more and register at engage.element451.com. We can't wait to see you then. So tell me more about what that experience is in the good examples or the partners that Archer's working with. What is that experience like for the student? They have filled out an RFI form, and what happens? What do they see? What do they hear?
Yeah, great question. So again, like instead of, thanks, we'll follow up with you later, you hit submit and you're taken into, we call them digital experiences. It's essentially a section of your website that only these users can get to, and it's personalized to that user. So anything that they told us about themselves on the lead form is kind of pulled in to kind of set the stage to say, hi, Allison, let's get started. What would you like to know more about? And so right then and there, lead forms, RFIs are typically saying something like, request more information. I want more information. And so we're basically saying, like, the concept here is, well, let's continue that conversation. Like, what kind of information are you looking for? You can get easily lost and turned around and confused on an institution's website that's trying to serve all these different audiences.
Yeah.
We know you're interested in a program, or at least interested in us. So what is it? Do you want to know more about our brand and what makes us unique as educators? Do you want to know more about this specific program? Is it the cost and the path to enrollment that you're interested in understanding, or how to finance? A lot of times what we see is users are simply trying to just understand how to navigate the process, right? Like, what do I do next? What is the right next step? So really that experience is meant to do a few things. One, again, it's personalized to the user. It's welcoming. It's kind of just creating that like welcoming environment and engaging experience. But we're asking questions to say, like, what's important to you? What do you want to know? And we're answering questions, right? Like, once we know what's important to you and what you're looking for, how can we make sure we get you that information really quickly and in this environment that you're already in, so that you can feel confident and comfortable in taking the next step forward? So that's, hopefully I've painted a good enough picture there to kind of understand like what might be happening once you hit submit.
Well, it's very student-centered. And I often talk about on LinkedIn, if anyone follows me, you know this, and I think I say it on this podcast quite often. I think there's a very big difference between being personal and personalized. So personalized, you can embed a name, a program into anything. But personal is getting to know that student and what they need in that moment. And so you've created at scale personal, and personal at scale is very, very difficult, I might add.
It is. No, I mean, thank you. That's a great distinction. First of all, you're right. Like personalization is you can do that all day, every day by just pulling
That's a mail
in
merge. It's a mail merge.
Name. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Nobody is impressed with that.
No, it's been around. It's done. But you're right.
Yeah.
Creating a personal experience and doing it at scale is very difficult to do. It requires a lot of time and energy and work and commitment. And that's why, I mentioned the haves and the have-nots earlier. I feel like today there are institutions that are kind of operating in this place where they can rely on their brand and users to kind of follow through because they know they want to go down this path and get an education at this institution. And so, you might think if you're at that kind of institution, you wouldn't need something like this because you've got this brand and then there are institutions that really need to rely, or that really are relying on enrollments, I should say, and are probably stretched so thin that they can't deliver this kind of experience because their marketing teams are doing everything from branding and printed materials and all the on-campus stuff, and also expected to create something like this really personal, engaging experience at scale. Like we have an entire kind of technology platform that runs this. I don't know how institutions would honestly do something like this, just using kind of third-party tools that are out there today, those plug-and-play solutions. Because you're right, like within this type of experience, we are doing things like asking questions and then tailoring content to that user based on what they told us about themselves. Hey, I'm motivated by completing this program faster. Well, now we can speak to that with all of our follow-up content, how this program might fit that need. And by the way, if you've told us that that's important, plus, making sure that the cost is aligned with, your budget, we can speak to that as well and put that kind of information in front of you more and more. And again, it isn't as easy as I think a lot of companies or marketers make it sound. It's fairly complex.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it is. And I can vouch that it works because we do this at Sienna post-admit. We have a whole system of asking the student questions so that we can build a relationship and we're putting content in front of them that matters to them and what's important to them rather than trying to say everything about Sienna or everything about the biology program to them. Let's find out what is going to help drive their decision making and make it very personal in that way. Actually, we know the students that we do that with are 2.4 times more likely to enroll. So I can vouch that taking a personal approach is the way to go, but very hard to scale, right? That's why we don't do it until the admit stage, because at least our numbers are smaller, and it makes it more manageable. Do you have any data or examples that you want to share that really highlight the value of taking this approach?
Yeah. So for one of our partners, when we came, and let me set the stage by saying this was a partner that didn't really have an outreach strategy. Like they had your typical kind of automated email campaigns and things like that, but they weren't actually getting on the phone and reaching out to prospective students until they started their application. And so we came in and put this solution in place again, right up, as soon as someone hits the submit button on an RFI, they're going to this experience. And we were able to drive those, applications they went up by 186%. Wow. Within the first 60 days of this being in place. And so I think that just speaks volumes. That's a case study we use a lot just to show, the importance of this and how it really can make a difference and drive, conversions down funnel. Because again, it's what's important to these prospective students. If you can get that information in front of them and keep them engaged, and help them understand, like, here's the next step you need to take, by the way. Yeah. Like, once you feel comfortable and confident, this is it. Don't forget to do this. Here's what this looks like. We see a lot of success with coming in and putting that in place.
Yeah, and hand raisers, that's what I'm calling these students in my mind. The hand raisers are only going to get more important because I don't know how much you know about what's going on with the College Board, but for instance, how we purchase student information to be able to start communicating and start educating about our institutions is completely changing. Basically, the way that we're going to be able to communicate is going to be only through in-app messages using the Big Future app. And I don't personally picture many teenagers in particular, that's Sienna's main audience, sitting there waiting for messages from colleges to pop up on their phone through the Big Future app. So we have to be looking. So our search audiences that build a lot of schools, like the types of schools we're talking about, and Sienna is one of them, a regional school with strong reputation, not a name brand school nationally.
Right.
We have to look at our other audiences, our other sources, and we have to really be leveraging them and thinking, how are we doing this? So I guess what I'm saying is we can't take for granted the hand raiser students, the people who are coming to us anymore. Right. And this shift with search marketing is really going to push that issue. So it's a really timely topic to be thinking about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's such a good point. And I know that this is a big change currently, but I feel like this is a moment that, whether or not the rules are changing, that this has just been kind of happening over time anyway. Is there's so many more options today than there have been in the past for higher ed, especially with online and hybrid, the ability to, not have to go somewhere that's right in your backyard. I was thinking about this earlier, I think in higher ed, I've been in higher ed for 15 years. I know that's not forever, but I think it's long enough to have seen this shift where, as institutions, we used to think, well, putting roadblocks in place isn't a bad thing because that just means that the people that get through it are going to be more committed. And that's a good thing, right? Like, we want to make this at least a little bit, there's a little bit of friction here so that we know that we're getting the right students. And I just think that mindset shift has to be there today, that's not the way to attract students, and that doesn't mean that that's the only way to get quality students in the door is to put roadblocks in front of them and see if they can get over them. We have to create those paths and that experience that's really positive and engaging and helps those prospective students feel connected versus, this is a challenge to overcome. So I think what you're speaking to, obviously, it's a big and specific challenge, but to me, it kind of fits in that world of we needed to go this way anyway.
Yes.
Right. And just thinking about the students as customers, I know that can be kind of a dirty word, but thinking about their experience and how to make it positive, not only the learning environment, but just the community that you're building and the trust that you're building with those students kind of right out of the gate is just as important.
Yeah, I completely agree because intentionally or not, when we put up those roadblocks and barriers and those hoops, we're affecting access to
That's
college
right.
education too. And we need to come to terms with that we've been cause of that. So a lot of times, by the way, marketing does not get looped into that whole conversation about inclusivity and access, but we have a role to play there. And so when we put those
Right.
roadblocks up, we are blocking people,
Yep.
whether that was our intention or not. And
Right.
also, I think we as consumers, we are all now used to, and we expect a much more frictionless experience across the board. So when they go to a college website and do this, and it's a completely different kind of experience than what they're getting from Amazon and Netflix and Nike and all these brands they hold in high regard, they're kind of like, what is this? I don't know what this is.
That's exactly right. And again, that's something we talk about all the time is, all of us, everyone, we're consumers in our everyday lives, and everything's so digital now that we've come to expect this higher level of kind of a digital experience. And so you're right, when that's not there, it's a big like, whoa, what even is this kind of moment?
I don't think I don't think it's signaling what we want it to signal to
Right.
the student.
Right. And again, if you think about hand raisers or someone that's saying like, hey, I'm interested, we want to give them green lights, right? Like, here's how you move forward now versus, again, putting roadblocks in the way, whether it's intentional or not, to hold people up or to get people to drop off because they can't figure it out or they're frustrated by it or whatever that may be.
We can't afford to have people dropping off in our funnels
No.
anymore, everyone. So, all right, let's do one last question. So if we've piqued some interest among our listeners that they need to be thinking about this moment and how to leverage it, what's one small first step that they can take as soon as they finish listening? And I'm going to start with one because I came up with one while we were just talking. I think one is if you do not know about the changes happening to search marketing, go and find out. It's a huge change for our industry. I'm not sure enough people are talking about this or have an understanding about what's about to come. Now it's a change across the board. So that's the good news, but there's going to be a story of people who leverage how they find and nurture students differently than they did before, and people who don't figure it out. So let's be on the side of the people who figure it out, and this could be one tool in that arsenal. Angie, what do you have?
Great question. Go to your institution's website, or better yet, find someone that can do this that isn't as familiar, and have them fill out a lead form and report back to you, or you write down this. What happens when you do that? What does do you get that static thank you page? Does anyone follow up? If you put yourself in kind of the user's shoes to say, what's going to help drive me forward, fill out the lead form using that lens, or like I said, better yet, have somebody else do it and come back to you and kind of report back on what that experience was like. Find something in that moment to upgrade and to elevate and to fix. Even like 1% can make a difference, right? So find something in that experience that you can elevate and fix right away. And don't wait, right? Like do this now. You can figure out the longer term solution or what that needs to look like more holistically as you go. But if you can find little ways to make improvements along the way, it'll make a difference.
Fantastic advice. Thank you, Angie, for sharing your expertise on this really critical moment. Going back to how I opened the show, a critical moment from the student perspective, and one that we need to start realizing its importance on the higher ed marketing side. Thanks for being on the show. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Application. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. If you're interested in learning more about what Archer is helping their partners to do, make sure you reach out to them. And until next time, happy marketing. The Application is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed tech shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea, and they feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Day Kibbolds, Jeremy Tiers, and so many other of your favorite higher ed leaders. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.